I know, I've been doing a lot of. Yeah, turn your speakers off. Oh, thank you. All right, I will bring the January 3rd, 2023 Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call.
Kate Thomas,
Here.
Troy Carr,
Here.
Deb Baker,
Here.
Jim Hansen is absent with notice, as is Clay Colomb, Jamie Clapham.
Here.
And Michael Berkland.
Here.
Tonight, we have Pastor Craig Moore from First Assembly doing the invocation. Please.
Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you, Lord, for each of our school board members. I thank you for their dedication to serve our district, the administration, the teachers and support staff, the parents, and mostly, Lord, the students of Rapid City. But I thank you for your presence. May your presence be evident in this room and give direction and guidance. Bless every student in the Rapid City school system and bless our families. Lord, bless the administrators who lead our teachers and make such crucial decisions. Give them health and strength. Give them wisdom, guidance, and creativity, courage to always do the right things. Lord, bless the principals, the assistants, all the teachers and support staff. Give them health and strength. Let them have positive influence in the lives of our students. Lord, give them all wisdom, strength, courage, creativity, love, and grace as they teach, lead, and encourage students. And Lord, bless the school board members. Give them health and strength. Give them wisdom as they make difficult decisions. Help them be led by your Spirit to know what is best for our schools. Lord, give them strength, courage, creativity, perseverance, grace, and a spirit of cooperation to accomplish the greatest possible outcomes. Lord, it's our desire to see Rapid City Schools be the best schools in South Dakota and to see South Dakota schools be the best in the nation. So Lord, help us to work together to accomplish this. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on to the approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
A second.
Deb and Michael. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, we're on to sharing of the success. Mrs. Swigert?
Good evening. Happy New Year, 2023. And we're going to start out the celebrations of 2023 in the correct way by celebrating students. So that is always the very best kind of celebration that I think we can have as a district. Tonight, I have the third grade writing contest sponsored by Black Hills Reads. I have the winners of that. Black Hills Reads recently held a young writers third grade writing contest for area students. Winners were presented with gift cards, and first place winner also received a personalized family pass to the Rush game and a future school visit from Nugget. All 114 third graders who submitted entries received entry to a Rush hockey game. And I do want to speak out that I really appreciate the Russia's partnership with the school district and how they promote reading and everything that comes along with it. So there was two categories. The first category was short story. We have a first, second, and a third place winner. The third place winner title of the short story was Where's the Missing Library Book? And it is Allie Herrig from Robbinsdale, teacher Marianne Gaffney, and principal Beth Keeney. So Allie, if you'd like to come up. Stand over. It's all good. We're going to celebrate. Thank you, Allie. Congratulations. Second place winner, the story's title was The Mystery of the Rogue Meteor, and it's Adit, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Cornewa from Robbinsdale, also teacher Marianne Gaffney, and principal Beth Keeney. Adit? And first place winner, story title was Little Elk Creek, Natalia Varga, Meadowbrook, Angela Nipsel, thank you. Principal Shannon Schaefer's. So, Natalia. And the second category was poetry. Third place, title of the poem was Missing Person by Audrey Vivquin. Blackhawk teacher Teresa Lighty, and principal Jessica Canta. So Audrey? Okay. Okay, thank you. Second place for the poetry, title of the poem was Bigfoot, Thomas Falcone. Teacher Teresa Lighty, principal Jessica Canta. And first place in poetry was Aubrey Carlson, Blackhawk, teacher Teresa Lighty, principal Jessica Canta. One more. And then stay up here because I'm going to have everybody come up. Can all of the students who received a certificate come up real quick and we'll take one big picture?
Oh, should I?
Yeah, all of
I
you
did. Yeah, I did get one.
Yeah. So board, we need to celebrate this. I think writing contests help instill a passion for reading and writing that I, of course, as a former English teacher, absolutely champion. But this is fantastic. I appreciate the principals and the teachers and the students that all participated. 114. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, I have a meeting with I will.
She will ask. That would be great.
On behalf of the board, we're all very proud of you students. Thank you. All right, we are now on to persons wishing to address the board. Issues that affect, did I have 4? Really quick, the guidelines. Issues that affect individual or particular schools should be addressed at the building level. Speakers should focus on their main points and not be repetitive. Personal matters or complaints that are directly or indirectly identify an employee shall not be discussed. And to maintain civil dialogue, threats and intimidation are not allowed. And our first speaker is Florence Thompson. We each have 5 minutes as well, since there's only 4.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education, and I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools as a psychologist. Wonder if I could have Shirley pass these out to the board, please. Tonight, I'm speaking on the right to pray in public schools. And this has to do with the 2020 South Dakota Legislature House Concurrent Resolution 6012. And that was by a concurrent resolution. That means it was approved by both the House and the Senate. And whereas the founders of the First Amendment approved the First Amendment of the United States Constitution that made religious freedom the initial right stated in our foundational document. And whereas the First Amendment to the United States Constitution articulates the intention of our founders to prevent governmental interference in the practice of religion. Whereas the ability of the people to worship freely and openly and to live faithfully by the tenets of their faith is protected by the First Amendment. And whereas a major part of many world religions is the practice of prayer, both private and public. Whereas in the case of Engel v. Vitale in 1962, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that state-sponsored prayers in public schools violated the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. And whereas the prayer by individual students can be accomplished in public schools in a voluntary, non-disruptive manner, consistent with court rulings on the subject of prayer in public schools. And whereas in recent months, the administration of President Donald J. Trump has issued new guidelines through the United States Department of Education regarding this issue. And I did email those guidelines to the board members and to the superintendent. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 95th Legislature of the state of South Dakota, the Senate concurring therein, that the legislature supports the United States Department of Education's guidance entitled Constitutionally Protected Prayer and Religious Expression in Public Elementary and Secondary Schools, dated January 16th, 2020. And be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Representatives provide copies of this resolution to the Speaker and the clerk of the United States House of Representatives, to the President pro tempore and the Secretary of the United States Senate, and to the members of the South Dakota Congressional Delegation. And I think it would be a great thing if our State Department of Education would also put this out as part of their official publications. So thank you for that. And we did get very good response on that bill at the time of the resolution. I think there were only four opponents to that, 4 people that voted against it.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marguerite McPhillips.
Hello, my name is Marguerite McPhillips. I've never had children and in this public schools or even had children, but my concern has been that I've been hearing that over 14 years old, they do not get to ride the school bus. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've been hearing it. I live in the Rockerville area and the parents have been telling me this, that they have to get their own rides in. And it just doesn't make any sense to me if that's true, because not every 14-year-old is able to drive or their parents can afford a car or gas. So I was just curious if that is a true statement, because that's what the parents are telling me. So I just wanted to get that clarified and see if there was a reason, if it's true. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Donna Robinson.
Hi. Hi, I want to speak to you today about the social studies standards that have been proposed. And I have given this a lot of thought. I became very interested when the earlier standards in 2020 were rejected and dismissed. I became more interested at the beginning when the new committee was announced and started their work. As a retired educator, I was interested and paid attention to the process. I have served on many science curriculum standards committees and worked hard in the middle school adoption, which was a broad overview of the 4 main subjects and curriculums. My husband was an outstanding and award-winning social studies teacher who served on a variety of committees and developed a variety of social studies classes. He shared his perspective, so I have some secondhand experience on social studies curriculums. So my thoughts and opinions are based on my experience. First, I have an enormous amount of respect for the teachers who served on these committees. The work can be tedious and time-consuming and sometimes get mired in individual perspectives. Teachers must give up part of their precious summer days, travel to work together, and study new ideas and trends. They argue over precise words, lobby for their own select subjects within the whole, and pay attention to the pedagogy of the educational themes and delivery. They read new books and compare delivery systems, combining books, computer programs, testing procedures, and styles of delivery for alternative learners. This is difficult and skilled work. But one reason they do this is because they care and are professional enough to devote time and attention to their subject. They know there needs to be a structure, knowledge, and weaving of themes. They know their particular subject or grade level, and they know from specific training and experience how to actually teach the curriculum. And extremely important, they know that nurturing critical thinking is vital and how to initiate the process of lifelong learning. They know their subject needs to integrate with other disciplines such as math, English, science, art, and to be truly useful. There was a committee that did this and served honorably in 2020. I trust their judgment and their work should have been accepted. I think it's rather important for the people of South Dakota. They need to know why their work was rejected and how much money was spent at this time and therefore wasted. Second, the current accepted committee lacked all of the value of the first. The new revised standards committee was lacking in their credibility. There were too few actual educators on the committee, and those educators that were on the committee have repudiated the new standard process. Bringing in a curriculum from Hillsdale College was unnecessary at best and more accurately insulting to the previous committee and to educators and school boards from our own state. Hillsdale College does not even qualify as an institution that educates and graduates teachers. We do not need a curriculum brought from outside our state. Our own professionals are local and know the students and the culture in which curriculum will be taught. South Dakota needs to know why this curriculum was initiated and how much money was spent on it. The wildly diverse questions bring in outside agenda-based curriculum, world history mixed with national and state objectives at each grade level is unquestionable. Quantity of objectives for each grade level is wildly inappropriate. The committee is too heavily reliant on the style of teaching that assumes students will learn by reading and memorization. It does not support any alternative styles of learning or reaching students at various backgrounds, values, and maturity levels. I looked very specifically at the first grade levels and fourth grade levels and compared them to the current curriculum and the recommended curriculum of 2020 and the new proposed curriculum because of my own grandchildren. I asked for opinions and information from several high school and middle school teachers. And by the way, these were highly regarded teachers who had actually served on previous curriculum committees. In this way, I was not only relying on my own judgment, but sought out opinions of people currently in the field. As if the reaction in the public forum held in Aberdeen and Sioux Falls can be considered, over 600 people weighed in against the proposed standards. The newly suggested standards are without a doubt unacceptable. So, and what I would like you to do is I would like to urge you and your influence as school board members to contact the State Department of Education and your state legislatures to reject these new proposed standards. Thank you. And I did send each of you an email copy of this writing so that you could look it over carefully as you wish. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Haley. And could you give us your last name? What's that? Okay, that's okay.
Hi, my name is Holly Wynn. I'm a mother of three and I'm just stay-at-home mom that is, always looking over her shoulder and concerned about her children's education. First, I'd like to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to everyone. I hope you guys had a really good holiday season. And I also wanted to inform you that Commissioner I'm going to butcher some names here, Lassester, and State Senators Castleberry and Fryermuller signed the Parents' Bill of Rights. And I also forgot to mention, I do represent the Moms for Liberty. And we're looking forward to working with you guys in the coming year. We're a non-partisan organization that just wants transparency between the school education and the parents. We want to work with the board. We want to work with the educator. We don't want to butt heads or fight. We just, we want to work together to make our students' education a lot better. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are moving on to board responses to some of the open forum topics. And I will look for hands. Jamie Clapham.
Just really quick, I wanted to, just applaud that a non-parent and someone not in the schools and in the community would come to speak. I think sometimes people feel that it only involves parents and students, and that is wildly untrue. So I appreciate that. I will tell you, coming from a metropolitan area, I was surprised when I found out about non-busing here. There is a history to it. It is something that has been brought up. Currently, the budget challenges and the logistical challenges are a large barrier because it would be a large addition to the budget on top of, because of the size of our district, the logistics and the schedule to make it work. And I say that not saying at all, I'm saying yes, no, any of that. I'm just saying those are all barriers that we face in that. On the opposite side, I do understand that it can certainly be a burden to families and that there are a lot of families in our district who either don't feel comfortable with their 14-year-old driving or don't have a vehicle. So all of those are very rare. And I think that's a very good point to be brought up and addressed, and something we will put on our radar for sure. And again, I appreciate said community members speaking out.
All right, Michael Berkland.
Thank you. I just actually wanted to respond to last meeting and take a moment to apologize for a situation from last meeting that I know caused some concern for some members in our community. I do want to start by saying that I do believe that I was elected to be a voice for every student, parent, staff member, and community member in RCAS. And as such, I believe that one of my duties is addressing accusations made against staff without evidence, as this is having a profound effect on staff morale and our staffing issues. I am committed to keeping these promises I made when I was elected. However, I do also recognize that at the last meeting, I crossed a professional boundary by addressing a community member by name. So for that, I would like to apologize. Thank you.
Bishop Carr.
I'd also like to talk about the bus driving issue. And I can't comment specifically to your situation or the friends or the people that are coming to you, but I did take a bus ride a couple of months ago. And after that bus ride, I came back to the meeting. The other problem is bus drivers, people who want to drive the bus. And it's a big need, and it can't be solved by these 7 members. It has to be solved by the community. And so even if yourself, you want to drive a bus or, well, see, hey. But that.
Don't like get up early.
Well, we'll figure something out, I guess. Yeah, but we need people like you and other people in the community that have the time and the ability to drive. So that's one of the issues that the district faces.
Well, I'll think about it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I was going to address that too, and while this says, board responses, I was going to ask, if Coy or Mrs. Swaggart would address the bus issue really quickly.
I did have my hand raised because even
Oh.
though it says board,
Yeah.
I did want to voice comments about this. I know that I've said before, this is my 34th year in the district, and when I was hired, I didn't attend Rapid area schools, but I attended Meade County. I didn't make it very far, right? We were bused in high school. We had that opportunity, and I was very shocked when I was first hired in Rapid area schools that we didn't bus high school students. But I will tell you that I know it outweighs 34 years. So it's a very significant amount of time we have not bused. I do think we need to take into considerations things like, even though in South Dakota you can drive at 14, there has been in the last few years significant additional rules to that process to get licensed. And it's no longer you go to the DMV, you take the test and you're a licensed driver the next day. There are a certain number of months you have to drive with a licensed adult. And I think that we need to be aware of how that could be impacting families. I raised my children in the Rapid City Area School District, but I live in Blackhawk, and my daughter at 14 was driving to a school event and rolled her vehicle and was transported to the hospital. So it is dangerous to have 14-year-olds drive. I recognize that, but we do come back to a lot of the cost. And
Can I say something? I watch the school buses where I live, drop the kids off and they're not even full. So-
it's not about space because they serve very long routes. And so they could have been full when they left the building.
But I watch them all the time. I live in the Rockville
Yeah.
area and I see them all the time and there hardly anybody getting on or getting off. So if you're cutting it off at 14 for the rural areas, and if you could get them to meet at a certain area instead of having that.
So-
14 drive.
So there's a much more bigger
Yeah.
picture here though, too. It's not just what you see, it's the whole district as a whole. And the fact that we don't have bus drivers.
We don't have buses, we don't have bus drivers.
Buses as well. That's
So
right.
we haven't purchased
Not enough.
enough buses to transport high school students because we don't currently transport high school students.
The high school students are allowed to get on public transportation because it's here free, but the rural.
Hold on, I'm sorry, we can't go back and forth like this.
But
So,
I'm just saying.
yeah.
Get
Go
you
ahead and
sense, but-
please,
So there's a lot of things to consider. I do think that it is on our radar. It has come up in multiple discussions. We are fortunate to live in a community that has partnered with us through the Rapid City bus service, the public bus service that they have partnered with us. They are not required to do that. They graciously do allow that. We recognize how it impacts areas of our community that are not within the Rapid City area boundaries. So just, I wanted to share that
Thank you.
those are all things that
Yes.
we have on our radar and our concerns.
Coy, do you, Mr. Sassy, do you think that there's anything else to add to that?
No, President Thomas, I think you all have done a good job of addressing that. Mrs. Clapham's response was right on. I don't think anyone could understand the incredibly difficult logistical challenge that organizing all of those routes and taking care of that function is on a daily basis. And so you're correct. It goes way outside of some of these surface level considerations and really deep into logistical financial considerations, obviously not just for a 1-year period, but for
Right.
many, many years out into the future. So
Yep.
I think it's certainly a discussion that we can continue to have. We can talk about how it impacts the district and ultimately the decision of whether or not we would engage in that would be
And we do, we
discussion.
talk about this,
right.
we've been having this ongoing discussion of the bus routes since the beginning of the
Right.
year too, so.
Right. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We are now on to student representative reports. Megan Ju from Stevens High School.
Hello, everybody. Since we just got back from break, my report's not too long, but I hope everybody enjoyed the holidays. Because of the snow days, the Stephen Orchestra and Choirs Holiday Showcase has been rescheduled to this Thursday at 7 p.m. and I hope to see everyone there. We have an all-day rehearsal on Thursday, so it would definitely be worth your time to go and watch. On January 9th, Stevens is having a community art show where students will show off their pieces and all the hard work that they've put in this past semester. Finals this year will be January 18th through the 20th, and Mrs. Hafner has sent out a schedule for them, so be sure to be looking at your emails. Prior to break, the Stevens Speech and Debate team hosted the East versus West debate tournament with 12 schools from both the east and west side of the state attending. Although it came down to a very last few rounds, the schools from the west side ended up winning the tournament. The student council also held a fundraiser with Mr. and Mrs. Claus, who were our homecoming queen and king, to raise money for a $500 scholarship that will be awarded to a student later in the year. For upcoming events, there are many basketball games with fun dress-up themes coming up. Tonight, there is a basketball game at 7 and the theme is goth, so go support. And then the student council will also be putting on a winter formal in the gym later this month. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. All right, Laura Jensen from Central High School.
Hello, board and all that are in attendance today. As most of you know, I am Laura Jensen from Central, and I hope all of you enjoyed your extended break due to the snow. Despite the snow, Central managed to hold concerts on our last day of school before break, one of which was the Winter Festival concert, which included a band, orchestra, and the choir. It was the first time it was held in a while, and the cold weather did not stop many from attending the night for a holiday sing-along and other fun music. Over the break, there was a lot of holiday spirit in the form of volunteering. The National Honor Society pitched in many community service hours this winter, including helping Badges for Hope, where they wrapped presents that were paid for by the donations from the community. The angel trees were stocked full with presents for our Central families, and they were delivered on time. Additionally, our environmental club is working on setting up a coat drive to help out those in need of winter gear for this extra cold season, unfortunately. The cold also didn't stop the many activities from happening at our school. Over the break, Central and Stevens basketball went head to head. Unfortunately, our girls team lost this year. However, the boys team won their game with a close score of 42-40. It was a great game. The Cobbler Co-eds performed for halftime and the crowds were cheering for their innovative dances. This upcoming week, Central High School will be hosting a play, A Chorus Line, from January 5th through the 7th at 7 p.m. each night. The tickets are on sale now, so get them before they sell out because they very well might. The tickets are $30 each for all the seats, and all of the proceeds are benefiting the local high school theater students traveling to England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales in June of 2023. This month, there are many wrestling matches and basketball tournaments to attend. However, there are other ways that students are getting involved. The art club is starting back up again, and there will have many projects to prepare. There's also intramural basketball that is gathering teams to play on the weekends throughout the rest of the school year. Additionally, track and field athletes will be meeting this week to get information about the upcoming season. This month is the last of our first semester and the beginning of our second semester. That being said, there are also finals coming up the 18th through the 20th, and students will be busy preparing and finishing up on their classwork. I hope we all wish them the best of luck because they might need it, they might not, we'll see. And I hope everyone here does good on their finals. If you have to take them, I know some of us don't because we took the tests. And so that's all I have for today.
Thank you. All right, Kevin Big Crow from Rep City High School.
I would just like to start off by saying hello, board. It's nice to see everyone in here today. And I'll just dive right in and get started. Returning from break. Today marks our first day back to school in 2 and for some 3 weeks. With the snowstorms of late December hitting right before winter break, many learners were out an extra week. It was good to see everyone filling the hallways once again today. With the end of second quarter quickly approaching on January 20th, classes are starting to focus on final projects and wrapping up learning. With Rapid City High School following a quarter schedule, this will mark a completion of our second set of 4 classes for this school year. And as we near the end of each quarter, Rapid City High School staff began to evaluate the admittance of new learners. Currently, Rapid City High School and Virtual High School is a first come and first serve application-based school. This means that at the end of each quarter, staff try to fit in as many learners from the waiting list as possible based on space. Learners are being invited to attend one of our 4 orientations over the next 2 weeks, 2 for Virtual High School and 2 for Rapid City High School. All learners that accept admissions for either Virtual High School or Rapid City High School will start with us on January 24th. It's always exciting to welcome new learners. Rapid City High School houses many wraparound services to support the learners of our district. Throughout this year, I'll be taking a moment and reports to highlight these services. Today, I would like to share about the clothing closet at Rapid City High School. Throughout the district, you will find several schools that have some form of clothing closet to meet the needs of their learners. Rapid City High Schools has dedicated a room on the 2nd floor and has set up much of it like a clothing store. With the help of the Rapid City High School class of 1967, the space has grown to be an organized and welcoming experience for learners. On average, the clothing closet sees 2 or 3 learners a week. Learners' needs range from needing a new shirt for the day, needing warm clothes when the weather turns cold, to needing clothing in general. Many learners walk out with several new outfits for them and their family members. Learners are able to take what clothing they need for free with no questions asked. Helping learners meet their basic needs helps them feel a sense of belonging and allows them to focus on their academics. As I have reported a few times this school year, that learners at Rapid City High School have been focused on taking interim state testing. From this data, staff teams have developed direct intervention lessons for learners scoring below proficiency. Before winter break, we completed a 2nd round of intervention lessons and testing. The new set of data has shown 10% increase in math scores and 5% increase in English scores. We are proud of our learners and our hard work that they are doing. In closing, I'd like to remind you of our school-wide expectations at Rapid City. Be respectful, be present, and be courageous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, conflict of interest, none have been turned in. So 10, first reading of, there are no items for any first readings, sorry. Approval of the consent agenda. Does anybody want anything pulled?
Yes, President Thomas, I'd like to pull D,
Okay,
K, and R.
all right. Anybody else? All right, I need a motion and second for A through T excluding D, K, and R.
I'll motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, I need a motion and second for budget amendment D.
So move. Second.
Troy and Deb. Discussion.
I just wanted an explanation on the line item of special education administrative costs of the $290,000.
President Thomas, I can handle that, and then
Please.
we do have Director Hafer here as well, if she needs to comment. So that entire budget amendment is made up of adjustments to federal grants for the various spending categories within that grant. So I believe that particular was carryover from the previous year. So at the end of any fiscal year, after we submit all of the reporting and the grant closeouts are done, the state takes some time then to verify all that information and then ultimately comes back to the district with the allotted carryover amounts. Then the district has to rebudget those back into the grant, and ultimately it changes the grant amounts. That comes back to the board then for approval. So that's what those are, Bishop Carr.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay. I already have a motion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. K, I need a motion and second.
Motion. Second.
Troy and Michael again. All right, discussion.
I just wanted clarification on the, specifically the C, the Life Workplace book on page 10. It says, Life and Workplace Ready course offerings per grade, and it says 24 credits required. So I just wanted clarity that that if it's a different program or if that's a typo and it should be 22, or if it's for this, well, it says for 23, 24. So I just want clarity that that should say 22.
That should, it's
Who
a
was-
typo. It should be 22 because we voted, well, I wasn't here, but it was voted
I
last
did.
year to, you all voted, so good catch. It was voted on last year to change the previous vote to increase our credit requirement to 24 back to 22. So thank you. Good catch. We will make that change.
So with that change, all those in favor? All right, all those opposed? All right, I need a motion, a second for R. Deb,
Second.
Troy. All right, discussion.
I don't have much to say more than I said the last time this policy came up, just my disagreement of it and my desire to vote no on it.
Okay, I would only add that in the past, when I first got on to the board, I ended up voting yes many times, but I had also the same reservations, just because this is alcohol. It's after hours when kids aren't there, but they know it's on the premise, and it just does not look good for a public school to be approving of serving of alcohol. And that was my opinion. I still have that opinion. I don't know if anybody else wants to. Oh, Michael.
I just want to add the financial implications of it for the Performing Arts Center. This would put a dent into their budget for their shows if this was something that they were not able to do, and therefore they may not be able to offer the same quality shows or quantity of shows.
So they wouldn't have as many people show up because they aren't serving alcohol?
They're not making money off the alcohol. They're not
Oh,
getting that $5 per drink or whatever.
oh, right. I see what you mean. Yeah. Mrs. Swaggart.
I know it's very controversial. I was a former board member for the Performing Arts Center before it was the Performing Arts Center. So they have hosted plays in a variety of places in Rapid City over time. When we, as a school district, opted to partner with them to remodel the historic theater at Rapid City High School as part of that, they sunk in a lot of money into that theater space. And I know that we are an elected board that changes over time, but I think it warrants having a conversation with them if we want to change this, because I think it was a promise that was made. Whether it should have been, when we are a board that is continually electing new representatives. I think it was a promise that was made. If I remember correctly, and I don't know if anybody in the room was here at that time, after all the money and all the remodeling was done, then somebody in the community said, wait a second, that can't happen without board approval every single time. And then it became something that comes to the board before events. I think that it warrants, if we're going to make a change, I think it warrants a conversation with the board to talk about what they know to be the history and what we know to be the history and why we would want to make that change.
Yeah, and I would just say that promise or no promise, it's obviously coming to the board for a vote, so it can be a no at some point. So any other discussion? Sorry, okay. All right. Do you want to do a roll call? Kate?
Yes. Troy,
No.
Deb,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and Michael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
4-1.
On to items for board information. We have a draft learning focused calendars. Ms. Swaggart, is that you?
Thank you, President Thomas. I'm very excited to bring forth the draft for the calendar, a learning focused calendar for both of the next 2 school years. I think that having the calendar mapped out for 2 years benefits the employees and the families and the community members of this entire district. Additionally, one of the things I'm very happy to have worked with a team to bring forward this calendar is in the 34 years I've been in the district, I have continually heard concerns that have never seemed to make it all the way to the calendar. So through conversation with the DDL team and Mr. Talley and other members of the school district, I feel really happy that we have addressed some of those things. So some highlights of these calendars that I would like to point out. Over the last number of years, we have discovered that parent-teacher conferences have kind of gone by the wayside of how attendance works. And even when I was a classroom teacher 12 years ago, what would often happen is nobody would show up. I taught remedial classes, so lots of times nobody would show up. Or I would see all of the parents for the students that were being very successful in my class. And, we'd spend 5 minutes talking about how great the student was. But I was not able to necessarily make changes in how things were moving forward for the students that needed those changes. This calendar recognizes that through time, that attendance has changed, so it reduces to 1 night in the fall and 1 night in the spring for parent-teacher conferences for middle and high school. We do recognize in this calendar that we have much better attendance at the elementary level, so there'll be 1 day of conferences for the elementary families, which I think will be very beneficial for that. And because they tend to schedule time for parents to come, and then they'll have 1 evening each semester. Another thing that has often come up is we as a school district have asked teachers to do a lot of online trainings and work that is outside of their duty day. And although that is kind of an expectation, it takes time away from them and they don't really get compensated or recognized for doing that work. So I've added a couple of floating professional development days, which would allow our staff members who complete online training and other training that we're pushing out to them and asking for them to complete it on their own time. And once those are completed, then there's a day that is a holiday for students. And if they've completed that PD, they do not have to show up. If they choose not to do it outside of their own time, it gives them time during a work day to complete that. So there is 1 day added to the Thanksgiving break and 1 day added to the Christmas break in the next year calendar and the following year. So those floating PD days are a national thing that has been talked about nationally for a number of years, and we have not implemented those. One of the things that I want to recognize Mr. Talley and his team's work for this year is we have spent a significant amount of time investing in learning focus. And we've done that through the instructional framework and from the professional learning communities and from the school improvement plans. And when we invest all of that time, we need to give teachers time to do that work and have time together in their teams and have time together to vertically work with other grade levels. And to do that, we are very strapped for time. So we have added a early release the first Friday of every month except January because it had a lot of time off. We recognize that may kind of seem like a yo-yo effect because we had early releases 7 years ago and then we didn't have early releases. I felt strongly that by placing these early releases on a Friday afternoon, families could benefit maybe from that extra time if they had students participating in extracurricular things, but it would also give our teachers the time to collaborate and work. We have a lot of potential to really focus on things that are going to improve learning in our district, and this will just add to that. So basically, I think that the input I've received from the staff, principals and teachers that have reached out to me is they feel really good about having been listened to and some of those things being included in the calendar. And I'm thrilled to bring that forward. I also have very much heard a concern from the elementary teachers about planning time. And I know that the board has had a lot of communication from elementary teachers as well. Middle and high school teachers have planning time built into their duty day because there's a period of they don't have students come, so they have that time every day. Elementary teachers really have to rely on specials to get that planning time or the time a little bit before school or the time after school. I did have numerous teachers reach out to me and inquire about the possibility of adding additional early releases for the elementary grades to address that planning concern. I do think that we as a board need to have time to really focus on how we can make planning time more equitable among our teachers. My concern is that I think the community would feel strongly that if we are early releasing for elementary, many caregivers are high school students or middle school students, and I am concerned about how that would play out. I think that we have resources in our community that we can look at for planning time, but I did want to bring forward a request that had been brought to me. I think that we do need to manage that better moving forward. It's very important to our staff. So those are the things that I am bringing forward, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the calendars.
Sure. I do have a couple of comments or one question. The early releases, no, it's not a question. Comment, sorry. Just so the public knows, that early release for the middle school and high school is one time a month. This is now where in the past we had every single Wednesday was an early release, and that was quite frustrating.
For every grade
For
level.
every
It's-
grade,
It's
exactly.
just one Friday a month.
And
as
it's one
it
Friday a
stands
month,
right
that's
now.
right. And then secondly, to address the questions that might come up with the teachers' conferences, this doesn't limit parents from calling and making extra trips into. Teachers are more than willing at all times to meet whenever they can with parents that can't make it to those parent-teacher conferences. So it doesn't limit the amount of conferences you can actually have with your teachers. So
Thank you, President Thomas. That is an incredibly good point. As we have become more technology reliant and we have opened our Skyward grade books up to parents, what I even learned as a teacher and as administrator that parents are contacting teachers as grades go in. So they are very knowledgeable as things happen, and teachers are replying to concerns that parents are emailing them about or contacting them about, which takes away the need that some parents feel to attend parent-teacher conferences where they may have to stand in line and wait their turn and be limited to 5 minutes. Contact at other times happens at a less limited than parent-teacher conferences. So thank you. That is a point I had hoped to make.
all right, Jamie Clapham.
I just had a couple, one of them is kind of, I guess, been expressed to me by multiple families and I don't really know the answer. So I'm just gonna said, has there ever been thought about collaborating with Meade and Douglas? I have a lot of parents who say, well, I teach in one, my kids go to another, they have this day off, we don't have this day off, the three share a lot of we consider all the resources in Rapid. A lot of kids come into the Y to play sports and this and that. So a lot of these parents are very involved in this community, but then the school's on a different schedule. I realize that's a large question. But that was just brought to my attention as perhaps at some point it could be considered. My other question, so when I look especially at the 24-25, and we have the with the PD days and the long break at MLK Day, is there like a specific educational reason? It just feels like we just kind of are getting back in the groove, like the kids are just kind of, and then they fall apart again because they have 5 days off. And then we have that long stretch, like to February. I thought, well, can we make that like around President's Day?
Reason-
And then I thought there's probably a reason.
There is, and it's hard for people. I mean, it is something that we struggle as teachers to deal with too. It is when first semester ends. So it is when teachers need a work day to do grades, figure out credits. Kids need to be rescheduled if they fail the class. That is part of it. It's significant. Another piece that's very important about that is we get lots of questions about why we can't finish the semester before Christmas. Like, why? And some school districts do that, but they start the first week of August. And you'd have to back up our start time in order to finish before Christmas with the semester. It does allow, East River schools do this. Sioux Falls, I know, does it, but they start the first week of, at the end of the very start of the second week of August, but they get out the first or early to the middle in part of May. They make that choice. I would caution us for doing that because of our current situation with buildings and heat.
Well, I also
And the
think
rally.
here, I will say,
Yeah.
considering the rally, I just don't know that would
Yeah.
it would ever work.
Yeah.
For us to start that.
But I appreciate addressing that because I think it is confusing to parents, like, we just started school again.
All right, Bishop Carr.
I think I was in a meeting and I think it was Mr. Talley that when we talked about the scheduling at elementary schools, that there were some buildings that were doing a good, decent job at that and talked about, I know all buildings are different, but has there been an effort outside just a conversation of those elementary buildings that are being successful, other buildings trying to model what's going on in those successful buildings as far as teacher scheduling time?
Well, there's certainly a potpourri of schedules out there, no doubt about that. And we talked a little bit about that, if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I
Yeah.
think before the break about, and I haven't had the chance to talk to the principals yet, which I'm going to do at our next meeting, just about looking at scheduling and figuring out how we can do a little bit more streamlining with our elementary schedules and perhaps looking at, is there any time out there that we can free up for some collaboration work in the mornings? We do it at the high schools. Obviously, Stevens and Central have the same bell schedule, so we start at the same time, we end at the same time, and we've been able to provide additional time in the morning. So I don't know what that will look like, but it's definitely something we're gonna take a look at.
Thank you.
Michael Berkland.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing this as a teacher, and especially for the PLC. That was one thing that I know that not every school and PLC group did well and appreciated, but I really appreciate it. And I really helped me in my practice as an educator. So I just wanted to say thank you for addressing all those.
I would like to just make the comment that I am very grateful for all the hard work going into this and doing the two-year. I think there will be a lot of people that do appreciate that. So now we've got to stand. I know of one parent that gets their kids during the summer that is really going to appreciate knowing exactly when they get that, so thank you. All right, now the draft of the regular education teacher partial tuition reimbursement agreement. Is that?
It's a lot of words.
Yeah, that's a big
There's a
one.
lot of words. Dr. Hafer has come, and she's going to be here as well. One of the things that I would say that is becoming apparent in our need for staffing is that we have a significant need for special education staffing. And we are trying to think outside of the box. It's being done nationally and in the state. And we are incredibly concerned that if we don't address and take on some of the same practices of other districts, we are going to fall further and further behind. So Dr. Hafer authored this proposal. Would you like to talk about it?
Sure. Also, Gary helped me with this as well, because I wanted to get the HR perspective on it to make sure we were following this. Ms. Swaggart sent me to Harrisburg because they're doing this as well to pay for the reimbursement agreement. One thing about special education is that someone can't go and do a plan of intent for special education. You can for other areas. So for example, I have an EL staff member who his background in bachelor's degree is in architecture. And so then he went and he did this plan of intent to become an English language teacher. Special education, you cannot do that. You have to be a certified teacher and then you can become special education certified. So we can't go out and just grab people to come in and do special education. You have to have that other certification. We also just finished child count, which was great. We just got it done. It's a big deal. We have 100 more students this year than we did last year. So we are growing. And as you saw in my document, we've had lots of classrooms that we've had to close down. We're going to need to bring those back in because we have more students qualifying for our services. So this would really help the teachers who are already doing this right now for me. This would help with their tuition reimbursement. And then anyone who would be interested within the district or within the state of South Dakota to do this as well.
Oops, any questions? Let me see. Get back into the other screen. Any questions? No? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You know where I work if you have
Yes,
questions.
yes, you do. All right, moving on to reports of the superintendent.
It's me again. So thank you for always being willing to listen. The last few days before break were impacted by weather. I think it's been a huge conversation in our district and I'm not one for sweeping things under the rug. I think we have to address them. And as you all know, I'm more than willing to take responsibility for the decisions I make. But I'd like to share a few things about the process that is used to determine whether we call off school or not. And I appreciate Bishop Carr for asking some of these questions so that I realized everybody doesn't have the information I have at my fingertips, and it would be beneficial to share that information. So when I call off school, I get notifications from the National Weather Service and the NOAA usually days in advance of a weather situation happening. Prior to a alert or a warning or a watch being called, the National Weather Service oftentimes hosts a Zoom meeting where they invite school officials from all over or city officials that are going to be impacted by this. So they give us their best thinking. Now, we all know what predicting the weather means in South Dakota, but we thoroughly pay attention to the information that we are getting. We don't just randomly make decisions on our own. Then as individuals in our district that are part of this process, everybody who's involved with me is constantly consulting the models, the weather models, the National Weather Service, if they have contacts that work for TV stations, everybody's reaching out to everybody that we possibly can to get the most updated local reports. We hold meetings via Zoom with Buildings and Grounds, Student Transportation, COI's office. We meet, we make a plan, we try to share everything that we have heard and learned from all of our connections. We reach out to the Rapid City Police Department, to the Pennington County Sheriff's Office. We reach out to the county emergency management teams and to the Rapid City management, the streets, Rapid City Public Works. We gather information from surrounding superintendents. I feel very fortunate that I have a very strong rapport with the superintendent of New Underwood, Douglas, and Meade County, Spearfish, and Hill City. So we reach out and what are they hearing? Because they may be hearing something different. Here's what it boils down to. Rapid City Area School is a huge area. And because of the Black Hills, we have many microclimates. So what is happening in one part of our district doesn't necessarily happen in every part of our district, which makes it incredibly complicated. It may very much look like you can look out your area of town and be like, I can see the school. There's nothing wrong. Why can't my kid go there? Why can't my student attend school? There's no reason. They can't make it across the street. While that is very true for the families that live near that school, it is not true for the employees. Because our employees do not have to live in the area where they teach. And we have a number of employees who live in other parts of town and have to travel clear across town or clear across the district. But we also have a significant number of employees who live outside of the district entirely. And in this last situation with the interstate being closed in both directions from Rapid City, we were highly impacted by staff that could not come in. Their inability to get to work causes significant issues. We've talked a lot over the last couple of years about our need for subs. Many of the people who are choosing to step up and be substitute teachers for us are retired, and they, believe me, do not want to travel out in questionable weather either. So we can't just guarantee that we're going to have substitutes for all of those positions that are empty. And it is significantly impactful on the teachers who do show up if they have to cover additional classrooms or students for the teachers who cannot get there. And it becomes a question of, is learning happening? Road closures, that interstate being closed, I mean, in some ways, that is just the call that we have to make. If the interstate is closed, it's significant for us. Building impacts are also a huge consideration because blowing and drifting snow based on how our winds can change significantly. There is no perfect way to place a building on a plot of land that we're going to always be protected from these blizzard conditions. And we can have doorways or parking areas or streets that are completely impassable. During that week of snow days, I was at work every day. I had principals at work. I had 2 different principals reach out to me and say, I'm stuck in the street in front of my building, and Buildings and Grounds is trying to get me out. So that is a huge concern. A lot of questions came up about e-learning. And one of the reasons I didn't go with an e-learning day for the first or any of the 2 days after that is in the week prior to this snow event, I had been in a superintendent conference with the Department of Education, and they had stressed with us that they had tightened up e-learning regulations, and the e-learning regulations that they now are requiring us to prove in order to count it as an e-learning day is the Department of Education said schools must prove that every teacher had contact with every student that was counted present that day. And in our community, we have to be very aware that if we are having a weather event, electricity, internet access can be highly impacted, but also we have a variety of situations where our families don't have internet access. And that was at the forefront of my mind. Now, having said that, we may have to reevaluate that because we did use 3 snow days. And although we are in a comfortable place with hours currently to meet the requirement from the State Department of Ed, additional snow days does put that in jeopardy. So we need to have considerations, and we are already on this calendar this year going into June. So extending that further into June, I think is something that the board is really going to have to be aware of. And I myself am going to have to be aware of. So those are considerations that I just wanted to share all of that so that the community, anybody who watches the board meeting and the board itself can be aware that those are all things that play in. And although, yes, it does come down to me making the final call, I have a great team of people that are more than willing to take my call at 3:30 in the morning, because that last Friday we were texting and having calls very, very early. I'm not just arbitrarily making the call. A great team of people supporting me in that. So that's about the weather. Just some reports on different groups. The Teaching, Learning, and Innovation Department. The assessment window for MAP and Acadience opens next week, and our students in grades K-8 will be doing those assessments. We're piloting a new universal screener for reading, and we'll administer that test on Friday and Monday of this week. Elementary math pilots commenced today, so that's super exciting. Board members are asked to review the email that Valerie Seals sent to you, and you're encouraged to visit. Please plan on visiting any of the classrooms on the schedule beginning January 9th to see what is happening, and then you can participate in the survey. Additionally, before board meetings and at the PAC meeting and coming forward, those instructional materials are going to be available and surveys can be filled out after that. Special services, as Dr. Hafer talked about, we just completed child count. I also want to say it's a huge, big deal. We did have 100 additional students receiving special services this year compared to last year. This highlights our need for the plan to certify additional teachers and that need. 100 students, that's significant. I was also told that in December, we identified 7 incoming students with autism, and that requires a level of service. So we need to constantly be aware of and manage the need for students coming in. I also want to celebrate, I know I sent you all an email, but the whole community doesn't know that this year we had a goal for $500,000 in reimbursement from Medicaid. And we reached that goal the last week in December, which was super exciting. But I think we need to stress is that in 2019, we were collecting $3,000 in Medicaid. And so to increase that from 2019 to the end of 2022, I guess how sad, we probably could have claimed a lot before that, but thankfully we have got it figured out now and we're doing what we need to do to get reimbursed for the work that we can be reimbursed for. Federal programs, as you could see from the budget that Bishop Carr pulled on the consent agenda, carryover has been allocated. It is complicated. You never know what you're going to get in carryover. And then this year, carryover was even bigger in some instances because the state seemed to have extra money. So even what we thought we were going to get was bigger. And so now we have to go back to the drawing board and rebudget those. Typically that happens earlier in the year. They were kind of late giving that to us. So now we've got to really catch up because now we only have half of the year to spend that money. But there's always a need. So it comes into us and it may come into us in certain areas, but we can reallocate that out as needed. So that's happening. Facilities, sadly, I hate to report this, but we had a couple of break-ins over the break into buildings. It's always a concern. We have great camera systems. We have the ability to address this now. Thankfully, no huge damage was done in either of the break-ins that happened, but they are concerns that, we constantly need to be aware of. That's what happens when you are out in the building for 2 weeks. And we also had a pipe freeze and burst in an annex that caused significant damage. So we as a board are going to have to be addressing what we want to do moving forward with that. HR and IT are working really hard to finalize and push out a process for teachers who are subbing for other teachers to go online and get that completed, so that we can streamline that process up a little bit. In order to do that, we had to streamline the process for additional pay that we were using prior to. And I think many, many teachers that have been putting in for additional pay will be happy to know that you no longer have to get pre-approved. So that's going to help that where everybody's benefiting from that process. So even though it has taken a while to get here, it is a benefit. And I didn't have anything else from any of my other departments. So that's all you have to hear from me tonight. Thank you, Bishop Carr.
I just wanted to commend you, Superintendent Swigert, for the decisions of the closures. I would probably vote for you to get hazards pay because as a pastor, I have to make that same decision. And you talk to 6 people three say, let's have church, and three say, let's close. And so I commend you for it's not an easy job and it's not an easy decision. And I think one of the, even involved the board one morning, and I appreciated that. But I think for the community and one of the conversations that we had in executive council is the major concern is safety, and it will always be safety, not convenience or inconvenience, but it will be about safety. And I can vouch for Superintendent Swiger that that's in the forefront of her mind, that it's better to close when maybe you could have, to keep a child, to keep staff, to keep everybody safe. So thank you for those three decisions. That was a rough week.
That's right. Jamie Clapham?
I'm just like, are we technically on other? Cause I was just.
Yeah, we can go to other, yes.
I didn't want to, jump the gun.
Sure, we can now go to other.
And I will try to be brief and concise. Also, it's been a while, so things have happened. I wanted to comment on. One, I just wanted to say, I feel like as a board, as administration, creative solutions, the fact we had MOUs for long-term stubs, that we're looking for creative solutions to try to staff our district, and that I applaud administration and us as a board of, you got to think outside the box to get teachers in front of kids, and that we're trying our very, very best. A big thank you to grounds and transportation. I cannot imagine how exhausted they must have been after that week. So big thanks to them. I did also want to thank Superintendent Sawyer, one, for everything she did in administration to make those decisions, but also I really took great, it was humbling to me for you to consider even the board's opinions, because the bottom line is you don't have to, it is your call to make. But I think that speaks a great deal to your respect for us and your respect for our opinions. And I think very highly of that. And I'm very appreciative of you doing that, and whether we agree or disagree, but just knowing that you take our opinions into consideration. And I appreciate that. And finally, a big shout out to Rapid Valley staff. It was an unfortunate emergency situation the day of their Christmas programs. And I just heard so many stories of positive things. There were parents who came out of houses and brought blankets for little girls in their Christmas skirts that were cold. There were teachers who did not have to come to school on Saturday for people to get things out of buildings, and they did out of the kindness of their hearts. And though it was an unfortunate situation, the Pennington County law enforcement, everyone pulled together and really made it as non-stressful for the kids and for the parents as they could. And I'm greatly appreciative of that.
Yes. Bishop Carr.
I did have a question about, do we know what buildings are doing, those that couldn't have their Christmas programs? What the thought is on?
They've been rescheduled. My
They've been
kids
rescheduled.
is on Friday, so we're
Okay, all
gonna
right.
have Christmas on Friday.
All right, I was just wondering about that.
All right, any others? All right, we will be going into executive session for SDCL 1-25-2.1. I need a motion and a second. Deb,
Second.
Jamie, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. We won't have any action afterwards, so thank you for everybody coming.